How can you have ethics without God? Now, you do not want to start answering this question by saying, well, it's pretty hard to have ethics with God. Look at all these failures of all these religious groups and how terrible it is and all the bad things religion. There's an article that just appeared today in the English language version of Haaretz, which is sort of like the New York Times of Israel, both in terms of cultural prestige and liberal leanings. The article was called "No God, No Occupation." And the premise of the article was, if those settlers didn't believe in a God, and the Israeli public didn't believe in a God that they think talks to the settlers, then we wouldn't be stuck in this mess of the West Bank and stuff. And he blames religion for everything bad. And as we talked about earlier, religion has its downsides, but it also has its positive sides. And we have to have a more sophisticated understanding of religion. And most importantly, again, when you're answering these kind of questions, you don't start negative, and you don't attack what's called ad hominem. You don't attack the other side, or the other phrase in Latin is tu quoque, you're just as bad. That doesn't defend yourself. That just tears them down too. So how can you have ethics without God? Well, again, this is the conversation we had about enlightened self-interest. The concept that you can self-actualize, but also respond to the needs of other people. People have evolved mental frameworks and genes that help us cooperate with each other. There's a reason why we can work in societies even as large as 300 million people. Sometimes not as well, but often we've been able to succeed because we find ways to get along across religious lines, across belief systems, political identities. We don't break into our neighbor's house and steal things. Why? We have a general sense. It's not just the law. It's not just the law. I'll give you, there's a million examples like this. We tell our children not to talk to strangers, right? If your child is lost in a mall, you want them to talk to a stranger. The longer they're wandering around, the more likely someone is going to find them who has an evil intent. But if a child came up to you in a mall and said, I've lost my mom, can you help me? 98% of people would stop and do something. And certainly talk to someone in uniform, talk to someone, another mother with a child. I mean, they're strangers, but they are people. And you think about how shocked people were after 9/11 about all those New Yorkers helped other people. Right? Even New Yorkers helped them. Well, that's our basic human interaction with each other. Again, across ethnic lines, across religious lines, theology, it didn't matter. There's something innate in human beings that helps us cooperate with others. So you can have ethics without a God. And guess what? A lot of ethical systems with a lot of different gods have some similarities to them. They have a sense of fair play and following through on agreements with each other. They have a sense of honoring family boundaries. They have a sense of not killing each other, not stealing each other's property, whatever they define property to be. These are common across people because we have that same basic human evolution experience. We then channel it through religion. We put a God's label on it to give it authority. But the root of ethics is the human experience. So that's how we get to ethics without a God. How can we believe in people after all the terrible things that people do? Well, people are like science. They have tremendous power. They can be used for good, or it can be used for destruction. Train lines transport people across great distances, but we're also used to transport Jews to death camps. Same technology. Nuclear knowledge can cure cancer or drop nuclear weapons. We have these powers, these abilities. And what makes the difference is what we choose to do with them. This is where I would say human beings have done terrible things. They've also done wonderful things. Curing diseases, helping the poor, lifting, global poverty rates now are much lower than they've been in the past. I don't know if you read Steven Pinker's book recently. I think it's called The Better Angels of Our Nature or something like that. His point is that life globally is actually getting much better than it was in previous centuries.
Most of that's in China, actually. the data.
Oh, in China it's supposed to be
the data, but in China it's a big chunk of the data.
Interesting.
And there was a big.
If you bracket that out,
in China.
Violence is down too over the world.
What?
Violence is down.
And violence is down too, but again, it depends on. Yeah, if you compare it to previous centuries, it's actually down. The number of people dying from murder, the number of people being raped, it's down. It's not gone, but even globally again, you've got to think globally. But anyways, the point is, people do terrible things in Iraq, in Syria, in Sudan. We've seen people do terrible things, there's no question. But the other thing to point out with this is, when we say we believe in people, we don't blindly believe in people. We don't believe in people no matter what. We don't think people are perfect. We know that people are flawed, that we're tribal and selfish and self-interested in a negative sense. We understand our flaws. Sometimes people imagine that we've taken, by being humanistic Jews, that we worship humanity. That we've just fired God and put human beings as gods in its place. But I think of this as, think of when you fire someone at an important position in a corporation. Sometimes you want to hire someone right back into the same job. But often when someone high up in a corporation is let go, you redistribute some of the responsibilities to other parts of the corporation, and some parts just don't get done because you decide you don't need them anymore. So if we've, quote, fired God, at least an active interventionist kind of God, and it has a place in our psychology or how the world works, some of those jobs have gotten farmed out to other places. The enacting justice, the finding out knowledge about the universe, we don't have prophets, we use scientists, and so we've farmed it out to other departments. And there are some parts, like guaranteeing that everything will turn out okay in the end, we can live without that guarantee, because it just doesn't happen in our experience. So we've reoriented how our workflow works as our global corporation moves forward. So we don't need to worship people the way that others have worshipped God.